How's it going? It is yet another month, and it's April now. I won't be releasing this on April the 1st, because if I'm not mistaken, April the 1st is a Monday, and I will be probably filming the rest of this video on that day, I imagine. I don't know. You know what I'm like with these videos. This video will come out the 1st or the 2nd or the 3rd of the month, you know. Anyway, so far it is the 22nd of March that I'm filming, so let's go through all the films that I watched, because that's fun. I do enjoy doing these, so hence why this is like, is this my first video back since it's been on my hiatus? I don't know. I'm gonna start on this side, because hi, life's great. I'm watching movies. It's great. Let's dive into it. So we started with Peeping Tom from 1960. I didn't write a review. That is rare. I have never really gone to a film and not had a written review. I watched the Studio Canal 4K. It was tremendous. I gave it 5 stars. It is a exceptional film, exceptional 4K. If you're a fan of Psycho, this is a better version. Came out in the same year. It is some really riveting cinema. It's so beautifully captured as well, and has some terrifying sequences. It's probably not as iconic as Psycho for the obvious reason of, you look at Lasting and Legacy, but yeah, really good. On the same day, I actually watched 4 films on one day. This was the first Friday I had off in such a long time. I just banged film after film after film. So I also watched Flowers in the Attic, which I enjoyed. It was a friend's Blu-ray. They had lent it to me. I was expecting that a lot more people would have loved this. I gave it 2.5 stars, so let's be fair. Not a phenomenal film, but I did think it was okay. It was it felt like an underexplored version of what it could have been, which, you read into the history and you kind of understand, yeah, they probably should have maybe shown some of the incest stuff a bit, risque, but, it's what the film's talking about, technically. It definitely seems like it was barred so much behind so many different censorings that it's it really could not have been the film that it wanted to be, and I don't really want to watch the, I was going to say Showtime versions, those made-for-TV movies versions that they've done since then, because this is technically it's based on a book that has a whole series, so, yeah, I have no interest in watching any of them, despite some of the cast being interesting, but, I followed that up with Free Fire from 2016, again, another one lent by one of my mates, and, I mean, it's okay. I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it. It very much seems like one of those occasions where all the cast are like, yeah, we get to play these zany characters, and then they have, the worst shootout I've ever seen in an entire movie. It's just so awfully orchestrated. If you know the film, you know that, the criticism about the, just spatial awareness throughout the whole, throughout the majority of the movie is just messy as hell. But there are some fun elements to it. I do like some of the characters. I did like some of the playing. It's I don't know, it's fun. It's alright, I don't think I'll watch it again. Same with Flowers in the Attic. That's some movies for you. Hell of a cast. I think my review, which I was pretty happy with, the most Brie Larson film you can get. So if you don't like Brie Larson, you'll hate this film. But if you like Brie Larson, I think you might like this film. If you like her, you might like the film. Yes, but it's very much a, if you know her, the personality that all the Marvel fans hate of hers, you'll be like, oh, that's just her in this movie. It basically is. Then I rewatched Zombie Flesh Eaters, Zombie 2, whatever the hell you want to call it. I rewatched it. I watched the 4K from Blue Underground. I had a few issues with their 4Ks. I watched a couple of Fulci films, and most of them were 4Ks from Blue Underground. I had to turn off the Dolby Vision because it had this ghostly effect where it would have the image replicated by half a frame or something. It was or just jump in the frame across to the left a little bit, but with a translucent effect. I don't know. It was awful. I had so many issues with the Dolby Vision with most of the Underground films, except for one of them, which worked perfectly. But I just turned that off because on my Panasonic you can turn off Dolby Vision, and I just watched it with the standard HDR grading, and it still looked fantastic. I'd previously watched the Arrow version with my girlfriend. If you remember, if you don't, I had watched it a couple years ago with my partner, and we were both like, this film fucking sucks. How the hell could people call this the best zombie film of all time? And I've given it 4 stars. I'm still not completely in love with it, but I do understand it this time around, you know? Watching it, I'm like, I get it. You know, I like it a lot more this time around. I completely understand why people like it. Obviously, there's still the effects and stuff, but like, the way Fulci tells a narrative is so different. And by the stage that I had watched it, initially, I hadn't experienced a lot of Italian cinema, especially Fulci cinema, so I wasn't like accustomed to that kind of thing. Because sometimes you can't just watch a movie and be able to enjoy it at face value. Sometimes you need experience in understanding a style and a genre and a filmmaking point of view, you know? So, yeah, it was an interesting one to rewatch, but I did enjoy it this time. I still don't think it's a masterpiece. There are elements to it that I feel like could have been better, a bit of this and that, but for the most part, it still bangs out the ending, and it has the girl who gets her eye ripped out. Honestly, one of the coolest fucking kills I've ever seen in a movie. And I like the shark in the water this time. It was fun, you know. So I'm getting there. I'm tiding over, you know. Give me a couple more watches, and I think I'll find it to be the masterpiece that it is, you know. On the second I watched, so that was 4 in one day, by the way. So on the 2nd of March, I watched Monkey Shines at the Cinemaniacs. This is one of those annoying things where I've bought so many Blu-rays that I still haven't watched, and this is one of them that happened to be playing at the Cinemaniacs, same as a couple other films that they've got. They've got King Kong on tomorrow night, and I've got the 4K of that, and I haven't watched it, and they got the 4K version, and I'm like, mother of God. Either way, it was another Romero. I hadn't seen it yet. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I watched it at the Astor with my girlfriend and my mates. And yeah, I don't know, man. Romero's a crazy goddamn filmmaker, and it was really fun to watch it. It had such a crazy final act that it really just kept upping itself. Yeah, you kind of got to get on board with how mental it becomes, because it gets pretty crazy. So I liked it, you know, very early, kind of like a lot of Sam Raimi-esque stuff, like with a lot of the camera shots. There's, I don't know, it's fun. It's good filmmaking. I don't know, you get something different a lot of the times with Romero, and I really appreciate that. On the 3rd, I did a double feature of my science project, because Lee had convinced me into buying the Blu-ray, the Kino release, which it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. It's an enjoyable film, but it's one of those low-tier kind of like 80s sci-fi, you know, comedies, you know, the bad... I wouldn't say the bad equivalent to something like Back to the Future, but like it kind of tries to be like Back to the Future. I think it nails itself in the last act, because it's like, you know, 90-minute film. The first hour is fine. It has like a complete arc in the first hour, which is fine. And in the last half an hour, everything just kind of hits the fan. Like, it goes absolutely off the rails. And I'm like, actually, this part is great. The earlier part is fine. It's a perfectly average, like almost TV pilot, you know? Like, literally, it just feels like they've made an hour-long movie, and then the extra half an hour is like, hey, we're not making this into a TV show, here's the budget for a movie. You know, almost Mulholland Drive-esque, except not, of course, because this was designed completely as a movie. And it's fun. I don't know, it's got some crazy dinosaurs and stuff. Time travel up the wazoo. But I concluded that night by watching City of the Living Dead, which apparently was the first of 3 of the Gates of Hell trilogy, which I don't think I'm going to subscribe to that notion. I'll let you know in a bit. I watched the Arrow video version, not the new 4K that they've released, but the not the UHD, the classic original Blu-ray release. I loved it. I was like, this is what I wanted from Zombie Flesh Eaters. This I gave 4.5 stars. I'm like, I'm teetering that this is like my favorite, maybe my second favorite Fulci film. I did actually do a set list for a list on on Letterboxd, and it is my second favorite Fulci behind Don't Torture a Duckling. It's exactly what I wanted. It starts off with like a priest killing himself, and then just going from there. It's just absolute pandemonium, and I'm like, this is what I wanted. You got some great effects. It's just crazy upon crazy. It just keeps going. It being based on a fucking Lovecraft story is really funny to me. So like, there's a lot of great elements to this one. Again, you get these great effects. You get some great kills. You get some great moments. I don't know, man. I enjoyed it a hell of a lot, and yeah, it's fun. Actually, we did a triple feature, didn't I? Over the next 3 days. So on the 4th, I watched The Beyond, which I gave 4 stars. This was what a lot of other people consider to be Fulci's masterpiece. A lot of masterpieces for an Italian guy. I mean, man, that sounds almost like I don't like Italian people. Just a lot of masterpieces for one guy. Like, oh, this is his masterpiece. No, this is his masterpiece. Like, make up your own mind, for fuck's sake. It's the same with Argento. It's all that kind of stuff. It's like, because it didn't really hit European markets or like American markets so heavily until like later on, it's like, oh, now it's their masterpiece. The Beyond is good. I thought it was a good film. I didn't like it as much as City of the Living Dead, but I did enjoy it. It has an iconic ending. I think it was Shameless Blu-ray. It was like a limited edition Blu-ray I got from Shameless. Was really good. Had a good remaster. I did not like the audio mix. It was awful. It was a 4.0 mix. Who the fuck does that? The sound was coming from goddamn everywhere. It was like literally everything except for the front speaker and the subwoofer. It was just all the surround sound bloody things. It was just a ridiculous sound mix, which did not help me to appreciate the movie. Not to mention, it's got one of those opening title, like the logo menu thing, and it just shows you the last scene of the movie, and I'm like, why does it do that? I fucking hate that. It's clearly one of those, oh, well, this movie's so iconic, you'll have already seen it in some discount, shitty VHS rip that they won't spoil it for you because you've already seen it. And I'm like, fuck you to people who do that. Honest to goddamn, whoever the fuck programs Blu-rays to have a showcase of what happens in the movie, fuck off. You're spoiling the movie. It's literally the last scene, the iconic scene of the movie, and you've ruined it for me. So, that's why I don't watch trailers for movies as well. So, but still good movie. Good restoration as well. The sound mix is awful, but, On the 5th, I watched The House by the Cemetery. This was a rewatch, which I initially didn't like as much, but I liked it more than Zombie Flesh Eaters the first time. How about that? This, again, was a Blue Underground. I had to turn off the Dolby Vision because it kept... The other effect that the Dolby Vision was having was it was either a ghostly effect or every single time it cut to a different shot, it would have a weird double cut, flick back and forth weirdly or something. I don't know. It had a jitter. Turn off Dolby Vision, no jitter. Yay! Anyway, this film's fun. It's still stupid as hell, and the fact that they call it the Gates of Hell trilogy, I think is bullshit, because this has nothing to do with a Gate of Hell unless that's meant to be some kind of metaphor, because there's a grave underneath not really, technically a grave in the basement, but the doorway to the basement is get it, it's a gate to hell, because under there, it's hell. It's no, it's just a fucking guy who's made of maggots. My god. Anyway, it was still fun. I know a lot of people hate the kid. I don't know, man. I find these kids to be really fucking funny. The husband is the worst part. All the time, the husband is the worst. Because if the father, is either neglectful of his wife or doesn't know how to control his goddamn kid, then clearly he's the bad guy here. So, in this case, yeah, he's the bad guy here. Bad husband. Yeah, villain was fun as well, so, I'm trying to think if I actually mentioned anything about the kid. I do like Catriona MacColl, who's appeared in all 3 of these films. She was really fun. I like this. The kid, though he can seem a bit annoying, is honestly the most compelling to watch. Weirdly, yeah, I don't know, me and my weird fucking takes. I gave it 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. On the 6th, I actually did another 4-film feature. Technically, one of them was a making of thing. I watched Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the Criterion release, which I thought was really fun. Again, I'm not huge on the American teen high school movie. I think it's a really stupid genre. But for the most part, you can kind of see and understand why they exist and what they are. They've gone from usually goofy and pretentious and overly sexualized to, well, whatever the fuck, Booksmart is. Whatever. It's they're not really that sexual. They are still, but not as gratuitous, not like Porky's or anything. It's just simply, yeah, but Fast Times, it was fun. It was surprisingly entertaining. I didn't expect to enjoy the characters or enjoy the narrative, but I understood the dynamics. I liked the characters. I enjoyed it. You know, it's got some great actors in it. One of those classic, like, oh my god, all these people became huge after this, you know, and they were all good actors. What can I say? It's again one of those like with Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, where a lot of those people you're like, oh my god, I can't believe Alison Jones happens to be the best casting person in the goddamn universe. It's like, yeah, no shit, you know, people who are unknown suddenly become huge after the fact, and they all happen to be in this one goddamn movie. Well, that's the same with Fast Times, and yeah, it was fun, good soundtrack, you know, pretty fun 80s flick. I watched the Reliving Our Fast Times at Richmond High, which was a 1999 like direct to DVD making of, only like 40 odd minutes, which was on the Criterion, and yeah, it was fun. You know, it was what it was. You know, I of course watched the film for Phoebe Kate. That's why I watched the film. Obviously, gotta love Gremlins. I also watched the 4K from Scream Factory of Darkman because it had come in and I was scared that the disc was damaged, and it wasn't. It was all good, but yeah, I mean, I enjoy this film quite a bit. I gave it 4 stars. I like Raimi's films. It's always one of those things where like he doesn't. There's always like an element that seems to be missing from his films, where it's visually so inventive. There's such great like range of like story and visuals and everything, but there's always something that just feels like it's lacking. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a character thing or something, but I mean, I enjoyed it. It's still kind of like your kind of almost stock standard 80s night. Well, in this case, it's 1990, so I'd say 80s like superhero film. But I liked it. It was very much a discount Batman. And I'm fine with that. Liam Neeson is fun. Frances McDormand is good. It's got some wonderful visuals. Yeah, that's a good film. What can I say? Good 4K as well. I then followed that up with The New York Ripper because that had come in. And I was going to watch that as in my Jarlo wary. But of course it came in on the last day and I had to go out and watch Dune. So I decided to not watch it. But I think watching it now after rewatching after watching and rewatching the 40 films in order, because this was the last film of his that I owned to watch. I think I've got another one coming in the mail soon, but yeah, this one was really fun. This was the only one where the Dolby Vision actually worked. There was like no stuttering, there was no visual lag or anything. Like it all worked flawlessly. It was a stunning film. It is incredibly brutal with its kills. Like those painted pictures of like the most controversial film of all time, all that kind of bullshitty stuff that kind of get you into thinking that this is the greatest film you'll ever watch. I think this one kind of earns in a way. It's really fucked up. It's got some beautiful sequences to it. If you don't like the sound that the villain makes, you'll hate it. But I thought it was really funny, in a fun way. I gave the film 4 stars. I really liked it. On the 7th, I did a double feature of Darkman 2: The Return of Durant. It was bad. Don't watch it. It's a waste of your fucking time, dude. I've had the Shock DVD Blu-rays for like 3 or 4 years now. That was the same that I'd had for the original Darkman. So yeah, it's not a good film. Clearly made for TV. Really kind of just cheesy. The fact that Durant comes back is so fucking stupid. The fact that they're planning a 4th one where Durant comes back again, even though they've blown him up to death twice in 2 different movies. I don't know. It's got the guy who ends up playing the Mummy, so that's pretty fun. But outside of that, it's not really the great. Durant, the guy who plays Durant, is still good because it's like it's not hard to play the same character twice sometimes. I mean, sure, ask Macaulay Culkin, but at the same time, it's like I don't know. I gave it 2 stars. I didn't give it a like. I thought it was kind of meh. Very meh, in fact. I said, ironically, this one is mostly set at night, so Darkman can dress up like Imhotep without his face melting. That's also a thing. Why does he's called Darkman because he can only survive, like his skin can only survive in the dark, because if it's in the sunlight, like in the light for too long, it'll melt. And yet, no time in the first film does he actually decide, hey, I'm going to go out at nighttime. Because all the criminal stuff happens during the day. And in these, straight-to-DVD sequels, they happen at nighttime. So, that's kind of funny. Probably because it's just like, well, at least we don't have to, like, put him in, like, makeup and, like, all the rags and shit. We can just have him dress up like himself. But on the same, right after, I watched Darkman 3, Die, Darkman, Die, which is a fantastic title of a movie. I really like this one. I think it's definitely worth watching. It is a completely different narrative. It's a lot of people compare it to Face Off because it's literally written by the same guys at the same time that they were writing Face Off. They wrote this movie, and it's basically just Darkman has to be this like he's trying to stop this one bad guy who's introducing crime and drugs and whatever into the goddamn city, and he pretends to be him and basically infiltrates his family and then falls in love with his wife and his kid. And he's like, they have a lot of Beauty and the Beast homages and shit like that. Like, it's very on the nose with what it's talking about. But it was really fun. It recycles some footage and stuff and then repurposes them for between the second and third film because they were shot at the same time. You can read up about it. They even say that the second one was meant to be the third one was meant to be the second one, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Don't watch Return of Durant. Just go straight into this one. It's nowhere near as good as, the first Darkman. It doesn't have nearly the higher visuals. It's just recycling footage from the original film. But as a story by itself, it's still pretty fun. You can actually watch this by itself and you get the gist. So yeah, it's not bad. Then I watched Evil Dead Trap, which I had a high expectation for. I gave it 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it. It very much felt like it wore a lot on its sleeves, It's a bit of Saw, which didn't exist at the time, for like another 15 years, because this was 1988. It has a lot of Cronenberg influences, some Raimi influences, all these other American horror influences, and because of that, I wasn't really able to just completely love what I was watching, because everything I was watching, I'm like, I've kind of seen a different version of this before. Outside of like the first kill, none of it really surprised me or shocked me, and I wasn't really that blown away. But there's an element to it where you compare it to the rest of Japanese horror cinema, and you realize it's such an outlier because it's so different. Like, if you're so used to watching Japanese horror cinema, which is all about ghosts and revenge and this and that and whatever, you realize this one is completely different. It's the most American one, but it's also very similar to giallo. It's very similar to the Italian horror films, which I had obviously been binging for the past month. And watching it, I'm like, oh my god, this is so much like these Italian films that I've already seen. And because of again, it didn't sway me, it didn't make me fall in love with it, but I'm like, I still appreciate it as a film. It's still fun. I definitely recommend it. Go in a bit more blind than me, but at least with the context, it kind of helps. I watched the MVD visual versions. There was subtitle errors on the first film where some parts of it, the subtitles were like a second or two delayed. It has a good 40-odd minute breakdown, explaining why it's such a significant film in the history of Japanese horror cinema and its influences. So yeah, it's fun. I then watched. I had a hell of a weekend. We had a long Labor Day weekend. I had 4 days off. I'm like, oh shit. I had gone to, because I watched Evil Dead Trap, I went to Dead and DVD. I went to see Joel. Bought some films from him. And I was like, well, one of them is a John Wayne film, and it's his last film. And I'm like, well, I haven't seen a lot of John Wayne films, if any, properly. So I figured, I'm going to watch a bunch of John Wayne films. So I watched The Searchers. Holy shit, Westerns are good? Question mark? I mean, obviously they are, but it's one of my least favorite genres because I've never really loved the Western. Turns out Westerns are fucking good. I mean, obviously. And this one's one of the best. 5 stars. Easy masterpiece. Fucking phenomenal filmmaking. Turns out John Ford, probably one of the best, if not the best, Western filmmaker. I don't know, maybe it wasn't the best to start off with watching an absolute masterpiece, but at the same time, I think for comparative sake, it was a really good starting point. If you want to watch a film that really kicks you into watching the Westerns, this is a good way to go. It's probably a bit more revisionist than standard Western formulas, so I'm probably not huge on standard Westerns, but for the most part, I still really liked it. For the most part, I fucking liked it anyway. But yeah, my mate said it's definitely a revisionist Western when you really think about it. And it is. So maybe I just like revisionist Westerns. I love spaghetti Westerns as well. They're kind of revisionist, I guess. But yeah, anyway, that's just a thing. On the same day, I watched In the Heat of the Night, which I had bought from Joel, which is a 3-pack, which comes with, They Call Me Mr. Tibbs and another film. I think it's called The Organization. All 3 of them being in the same canon, with the same character played by Portier. And it was I only watched the one, and so far I've only seen the one. but it was really good. I gave it, what, 4.5 stars. Stunning 4K, beautiful film. It is a, well, beautiful in terms of looks, not in terms of themes. Holy shit, turns out America's really racist. Who'd have thought? Anyway, that was kind of funny. Yeah, it's a good film. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest it, especially to watch on a hot day. Really, really, really good. It was hot when I watched. It was like 30 degrees, and yeah, anyway, powerful filmmaking. On the 9th, I got drunk and watched Cyborg. I was at a mate's place over the weekend, and yeah, we just watched Cyborg. I think was it on YouTube? No, it was on Amazon Prime. I gave it 2.5 stars with a like. My first ever drunk tag. I don't get drunk very often, so to tag something that's drunk is a rarity. I really enjoyed it. It's not a great film, and honestly, it doesn't really land until like the second half, but it still is quite fun. It has some great fight scenes. There's only one cyborg. There's a wonderful kill that just is established by close-ups until the wide shot reveals that Van Damme was up on the ceiling the whole time. It's great. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. It's pretty fun. I need to get more into Van Damme's films. I haven't watched a lot of his films outside of like Street Fighter. I've got Hard Target on Blu-ray, but I haven't seen it. So, and I think there's that Bloodsport one as well I hear is really good, so I gotta watch a lot of those. But then I watched, by the same director on the same night, Nemesis, which I really enjoyed. I had a lot of fun with this one. I didn't actually credit it as drunk, because by that stage I'd basically sobered up. How did I credit it? It's Escape from New York, but in a jungle with elements of Blade Runner, some that predate 2049, but it's just one long run of action scenes and the occasional crazy exposition dump. It has the most explosive shotgun rounds you've ever seen, and every character is some kind of cyborg. The hero does a front flip off a cliff, and during the flip, he shoots his cyborg enemy and blows him up, leaving only a metal endoskeleton. That skeleton then chases them for the rest of the movie. It's very Terminator, but it's really fun. And this predates Terminator 2. I mean, this was the same year as Terminator 2. I don't know if it actually predates it or not, but who cares? It was fun. 4 stars seems like way over the top, but honestly, sometimes it's all about the enjoyment factor, not about and an understanding of the craft in a different point of view. Like 4 stars, that should be like a top class, like Oppenheimer level of filmmaking, and you give it to fucking Nemesis. LeMayo. Anyway, obviously I gave Oppenheimer larger score than that, but who really cares? None of it matters. Then on the 10th, I did a double feature. I've been watching these westerns with my dad, I should mention, like The Searchers I watched with Dad, so then we watched Rio Bravo. Yeah, wonder if there's a theme of John Wayne films happening. I'm doing little pockets of, I'm watching this, and I'm watching that, and I'm watching this. It's really interesting. Especially after 29 fucking days of watching Jalo, it's like, yeah, actually, maybe if you just do little pockets of maybe 3 or 4 films from this director, or like this genre, or this actor, could be fun. Fun experimentation to see what it's like, to see how people take and perceive different narratives and stories. But I watched Rio Bravo and I really liked it. I watched the new 4K, gave it 4.5 stars. What can I say? It's that other style of, we have a guy in prison and people want to kill him. No, people want to break him out, but they're the bad guys, and we're following the like 1 or 2 heroes. Usually it's like 2 or it's 2. But one of them's not that great, so then it's just 1, and then like he like basically hires 2 more guys, and it's just like tension. It's so good. It's not a John Ford film, which is disappointing, because honestly, Ford just has a way, and Hawks is good as a director. He's just not as visual. I've seen a bunch of Howard Hawks films. I'm like, they're not as visual. He's good with his characters. He's good with his world building, but the visual language that John Ford has really propels the Western somewhat. Oof. But fun, good John Wayne film too. Then I watched The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which I gave 5 stars. Again, 4K UHD, stunning remaster. I don't think I'd ever seen it before, and it's so fun watching Jimmy Stewart in a Western. I'm so used to watching him in like crime films and shit, like, Hitchcock films, and he was wonderful. John Wayne's really good. They're all got good casts, just fun character actors having the time of their life with a really interesting story, a good, again, revisionist Western. I think this is another one that was John Ford. Yeah, so this was probably his most notable of the revisionist Westerns, but realistically having done, The Searchers just 6 years earlier. Yeah, it's good. It's a beautiful film. I would highly recommend it, and especially that in The Searchers. It's a different style of Western, but it's very much got tropes of stuff that you can see in basically any form of cinema. It basically just happens to take place in the Old West. So I like that about it. And it's, the whole commentary and myth making and stuff. It's good. Then on the 11th, Dad and I watched True Grit. I'd only ever seen the remake, and I think I prefer the remake. This one's alright. I gave it 3.5 stars. The fact that John Wayne won an Oscar for this is kind of ridiculous, because I'm like, he's better in so many other films that I've seen him in, including The Searchers and True Grit and Rio Bravo. This one is like, he takes care of a kid? Who fucking cares? It's alright. It's a bit slow. But it still works out. It's still entertaining. I don't know how many times, if I'll watch it again, but I mean, probably eventually in the future. But yeah, it was still a good film, I can't discredit it. It's still a good film. Who did Henry Hathaway? Yeah. Anyway, and then I did my final double feature on the 12th. The first one by myself of Seven Sinners. That was the Cinema Cult edition I'd gotten. Not Cinema Cult, the Shock Entertainment version. It was their Hollywood Gold label. Yeah, it was alright. I gave it 3 stars. It was alright. It was fun. It's one of those like 1940s wartime films where it's like got a bit of drama, got a bit of action, got a bit of romance, got a bit of this and that and this and that. And it's really funny watching, seeing the reviews and people being like, this film just can't stick to a genre. It keeps doing this and that and this and that. I'm like, yeah, movies fucking did that, when you're in the middle of the worst time ever, you kind of got to just throw everything out there and just have fun with it. And, John Wayne's decent in the film, but of course in the end it became it always was a Marlene Dietrich film, and she's pretty fun in it, so, I'll give it that. But then Dad and I watched The Shooter, so we did get around to watching it, the Arrow video release, which was stunning. Tremendous film. Probably it's hard to say if I prefer The Searchers over it, but as a John Wayne film, as a Western, I prefer The Searchers. As a John Wayne film, this one takes the cake. It is a stunning film. He's so fucking good in it. Knowing that it was his final performance, all these elements that went into it, really just something else. It's really good. The limited edition was great too, with not just the slipcover, but the booklet as well and the poster. It's got a whole truffle of stuff. So, yeah, it's definitely worth watching. It was one that Dad had always said that if you can find a Blu-ray of it, get it, because it was so hard to get on Blu-ray. I don't think it even came to Blu-ray in Australia. It was just a really shitty DVD, and it was great. So, yeah, I loved it. Can't wait to watch it again in 30 years and get more depressed. I still need to watch How the West Was Won, which he has a small scene in apparently, but for the most part, I just want to watch, not How the West Was Won. Oh, no, he actually isn't How the West Was Won. That was another one I have, but The Wild Bunch is the other one I want to watch of his. But I do have a whole slew of his. I got a whole John Wayne collection, and they're all the not very great films he did. Not the worst of the worst, but Sons of Katie Elder and Rio Lobo and Rio, the other Rio one, whatever the fuck, doesn't matter. On the 13th, I had a really fun double feature. I got to introduce my girlfriend to 2 films that she had never seen, obviously. And it was a good contrast. I thought, this is a fun contrast, because we're watching King Kong 1976 tomorrow night, so it would have already come out by this stage. You'll see it in the next part of the video. And so we watched the 1933 King Kong. And it wasn't just that, which was really fun. Obviously, 5 stars, masterpiece, wonderful picture. I showed her the documentary as well, at least parts of it, to show her how it was made, because of how crazy it is for the production of this film. If you haven't seen the film, it's definitely worth checking out. If you haven't seen the documentary making of, definitely worth checking out. It's a wonderful recreation documentary. But then to contrast it, because I figured, hey, 60 years later, computers were invented. Not really, but I introduced her to Jurassic Park, which she'd only seen, as she credited as, the Chris Pratt version, which is really funny. But she really liked this as well. I obviously love it. I still give it 5 stars. I fucking adore this movie. It was a fun contrast because I was also like showing her like the introduction of like CGI and whatever, and she always wanted to know where CGI came from in movies, and I was like, oh, well, that's Vertigo, with the Saul Bass title credits. But we're not looking at that. We're looking at dinosaurs, and can't go wrong with dinosaurs. And it was like during the film, just as they'll get into during the Raptors part, just before he says "clever girl," like my favorite line in the goddamn movie, and Helene turns to me and she's like, "I want to watch Indiana Jones." I'm like, "No, shut up. We're watching dinosaurs. This is important." But yeah, so she actually wants to watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is great. I'm very excited to show her that. Then on the next day, I think it was a Thursday, I watched Evil Dead Trap 2 Hideki. This one was fucking amazing. I gave it 4.5 stars. It is so different to the first one. Instead of it being like so heavily over the top on the inspirations up your face, it was just slow paced and dreading and like kind of beautiful, like you can tell that it was written by the guy who did Akira because it has that like appreciation of Tokyo and the city, and then it just keeps getting worse. It's like a kind of weird slasher film, and then it just gets more fucked up as it goes. It has some brutal effects works. These two films have some amazing effects, blood and gore up the wazoo, some really like I want to turn away and cringe because this is like cringe, throw up, same area. It's just good stuff. Highly worth watching, especially the I watched the Unearthed Classics, the MVD visual version, but I believe 88 Films is coming out with releases for both films as well. I followed that up with Ebirah Horror of the Deep because I'm like, I guess I gotta keep watching these Godzilla films. I was watching a bunch of Showa era films in like November, December last year, because I wanted to watch them before Godzilla X Kong came out, and that comes out for me in a week, and I'm like, I haven't finished watching the Showa era films. I just stopped watching them because of Christmas, and I just got bored. I got bored of watching them. I was like, I watched a couple on the Criterion channel, and I was like, I'm done. I'm out. I've watched enough. But I've got all these on my Criterion Showa era set, and this one was okay. I didn't like it that much. It was like, he fights Lobster Man. I gave it 2.5 stars. I didn't enjoy it that much. I thought it was really boring. But then on the 15th, I watched Son of Godzilla. And you know what? I really like Son of Godzilla. Turns out I really like Manila. He's annoying as shit, but he's like fucking adorable and also hideous. I love him. He's just like a balloon. He's really funny. But I liked it. It's like... there were... Am I getting them confused now? Son of Godzilla is the one with the people on the... Yeah, the people who can change the climate temperature. It's so stupid. But it's fun. I don't know. I enjoyed it. Who cares? Sometimes you gotta enjoy these films for being the kiddie shit that they are sometimes, especially this late in the Showa era. Then on the 16th, I did a triple feature, technically 4 because I actually watched the 4th one, but that was on the Sunday morning. I resubscribed to the Criterion channel, and I watched a short film called Papagino from 1935, which is a stop-motion shadow puppet film. Really, really interesting. If you can get your hands on just watch it somehow. It's based on the Mozart song, the Flute Boy, or whatever the fuck it is. I'm not fluent in goddamn Mozart, but you'd know the song when you heard it. But the visual language is really interesting. It has some interesting character play. It's good stuff for a short film. It has its narrative. It captivates. It's good. It's just stunning fucking animation for 1935, And on the Criterion channel means it's a bit more saucy. Then I watched Xanadu. I did not give it a star rating. I watched it in here, which was a great idea because the soundtrack is tremendous. What can I say about it? Anytime someone speaks or they focus on plot, worst film you've ever seen. Every other scene, the best thing you've ever seen. Oh my god, this was such a treat. It is so hilarious. The dance scenes, the musical numbers, some of them are tremendous. Like the one that compares like the big band of the 40s to like the electronic, instrument stuff of the bloody 80s. It's just such a great contrast, and they mix together superfluously. There was so much fun stuff in this movie. The dance sequences, the musical numbers, that whole thing with Gene Kelly. It's so fun. It's just a stupid ass goddamn movie at the same time, but I really enjoyed it. So for honorary sake, it does not get a star rating. Good for you, Xanadu. Then I watched Ishtar. Turns out Ishtar is actually pretty good. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really fun. I liked the characters. I got it immediately. The kind of jokes that they were going for, the whole send up of, pop idols and musicians and stuff, and then the whole fucking stuff with them going to the Middle East and that, but them just everything that happens. I'm just like, this is really fun. It could have been a better film, especially knowing the behind the scenes that fucking Warren Beatty took over control very soon after production had started, even though he was so adamant about Elaine May coming back out of basically the gulag of Hollywood to write and direct the film. And yeah, I don't know. Interesting film. Kind of crazy how bashed it was at the time. But again, these were all part of the Razzies collection with Xanadu and Ishtar and... Oh my god, is that Freddy Got Fingered? I watched Freddy Got Fingered. This is another one I could not give a star rating to. I watched it on, again, Criterion Channel, same as Ishtar, same as Xanadu. Oh, how prestigious. I got on Discord with my mates and watched it, and it was just a riot. It was so fucking mental. I don't really subscribe myself to watching American comedies that are this kind of American comedy. My colleague recently discovered I have not watched a bunch of early Adam Sandler films or Will Ferrell films like Step Brothers or Happy Madison or whatever. I have no interest in that kind of stuff. And then me watching Freddy Got Fingered is so much in kind of... It's both the same alley and a satire of the same alley at the same time. It is a fucking riveting piece of cinema. I would highly recommend it, whether you hate it or not. It doesn't matter. Potentially watch the Red Letter Media review of it as well after the fact. Fucking weird goddamn movie. Then on the 17th, well, this technically was also on the 17th, as Freddy Got Fingered was, I watched Love Lies Bleeding. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was good. I enjoyed the performances. I enjoyed the visual style. I just didn't get it. How everyone's raving about it. Everyone's giving it 4.5 to 5 stars. I'm like, what are they seeing that I'm not seeing? And to be fair, it still is really, really good. But it was to get 2 lesbian crime films in the same month, one of them being a brooding kind of neo-noir, and one being the one about the lesbians going on a driving thingy, and it's a Coen film. And I'm like, I'm kind of siding with the Coen film. I love Drive Away Dolls more. I had such a blast during that, in contrast to Love Lies Bleeding. I was expecting mildly horror in a way, but I guess thematically it was horror. But it was just it didn't really... I didn't find that wow factor that everyone else seems to be having. But it was still good. I still liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I don't know if I'll watch it again, but... I need to watch her Rose Glass's previous film, Saint Maud. I've had the Blu-ray for years now, but I have not watched it, so I feel like maybe if I watch that, I'll kind of get more of an understanding, but I feel like that's just understanding the filmmaker, not really understanding what could make me love the film more, So, we'll see what happens. Then I got home and watched King Kong Escapes. I gave it 2 stars. I'm never watching this goddamn movie again. I hated it. I can't believe I watched it a second time just for this goddamn... Gotta watch all these kaiju films. Fuck this movie. I fucking hate this movie. I can't believe people like this movie. And I say that now, and in a couple movies' time, you'll be like, wait, how can you like that one but not like this one? I thought King Kong Escapes was boring as shit. Even the final fight scene between the 2 Kongs was just so dull. So dull. It's just, he's got the stupidest fucking eyes. Oh my god, I miss stop motion. Then I watched Sexy Beast on the Criterion Channel, because I got a bunch of Jonathan Glazer films on it, and I gave it 4.5 stars, and it's really cockney, and really riveting, and really fun, visually really nice as well. Got some terrifying performances. Ian McShane in particular is terrifying, dreadful, nightmare. Ben Kingsley, of course, is fantastic as well. can't not credit him. But yeah, worth watching. Crazy title, but Really good film. On the same night, I watched Destroy All Monsters, which was the first ever Godzilla film I ever watched, even though I don't remember most of this film. I gave it 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's like the masterpiece that, again, so many people say it is. I don't think it's anywhere near the best of Godzilla, even though it's clearly a kind of best of film. You get all the monsters, which is great. You get some city destroying stuff, not as much as I would have loved, but you still get some, which is cool. You get a big fight scene with all the monsters fighting Ghidorah. You get aliens. It ticks all the boxes. The human story is a bit dull. I didn't care as much for it, but I'm like, it was still alright. I enjoyed it. It's a fun movie. It is what it is. But then on the next day I watched All Monsters Attack, which everyone said was the bad one, because it's the kid-focused one. It's about a kid dreaming that he hangs out with Godzilla, and he has a bully, and the bully is called, like, Gabora or whatever, Gabara, and, like, it has, like, a monster replication, kind of, like, there's a version of a Monster Island that is, and this one actually tells it, doesn't matter, Monster Island, Monster Land, doesn't matter, is it got a personification of his bully as a monster, and Manila has to fight the monster, and then Manila has to learn to become a stronger guy, and it's his exact same goddamn character arc from Son of Godzilla. But I really liked it. I actually thought it was really fun. I liked it. It was 70 minutes. I liked the narrative about, like, bullying's bad, you gotta stick up for yourself, but I also like how they, like, intertwined the whole criminals, like, kidnapping the kid. It's got so many fun elements to it. I was never bored, which is really fun for a Godzilla film when you're never bored. I still only give it 3.5 stars. Like, I'm not hugely praising it in contrast to, like, Destroy All Monsters, but I did enjoy it more than Destroy All Monsters. Yes, sure, it just has the same footage of monster fights from the previous 4 movies. I know people hate that, but I thought it was fun, because they still recontextualize it in this film, and it's still like, well, if you want a movie with just a bunch of monsters fighting, and then you still have a really good character story, this is kind of a good pickle, You get everything you kind of want. You get monsters fighting. If you haven't seen all those previous films, this one would actually be probably really, really fun in contrast. And for 70 minutes, like, come on. Then I watched The Blood Spattered Bride. I gave it 4 stars. Interesting Spanish film, not Italian, but some Italian cast members. Not what I was expecting at all. I was expecting some kind of slasher revenge film, and it turned into, like, a kind of gothic vampire lesbian film. Really interesting, good commentary for, like, sex and gender roles and stuff. Very progressive for its time. Some wonderful visuals, some ghastly gore. Yeah, very bloody, but very good. I would definitely recommend it. I watched the Mondo Macabre version, which was pretty good. Then I watched, on the 20th, I did a double feature of the Miami Vice pilot, which you can log on Letterboxd because it's 96 minutes, which I thought was fun. Rented that on Apple TV. And then I watched Miami Vice, part of my Michael Mann collection, which was at the Astor. My mate wanted to watch it because it's his favorite Michael Mann film, so we went and watched it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I really vibed with it. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't say vibes per se. I just really enjoyed what it was. It was really funny. The crowd was great. We all had a blast watching it. It's just really nice. I love Colin Farrell in this film. He's gorgeous. So, yeah. I'd never seen it before, so I was really happy with that because, like, it's one of those films that's like, a lot of people don't like it. I'm like, I think that they just expected it to be like the TV show, and even though I literally just watched the pilot, it's very different to the TV show, and I don't mind that. So, credit where credit's due. Wish it had the alligator, but that's okay. Then on the 21st, I did a double feature of Godzilla vs. Hedorah, which I loved. I gave it 4.5 stars. One of my favorite Godzilla films, probably my favorite Showa era one. Like, my favorite Showa era one is realistically Mothra, but as a Godzilla-focused one, it's definitely this. I loved it. It was, like, terrifying and beautiful. It has such a great visual language and visual range. The monster is terrifying. I know it's just a fucking sludge monster, but the ramifications, it's just showing everyone's dying. Like, there's so many skeletons and shit. It is so dark. I was expecting these to all be, like, kid-friendly films from, like, here on out, but this one was, like, the complete contrast. It was, like, we're going hardcore straight to the beginning, basically. And, yeah, it's short. It still starts off really over the top and cartoony with the James Bond-esque music opening, emphasizing pollution bad, stop polluting. But the movie's really adamant. If you don't stop polluting, this goddamn monster will literally kill everything you love, and it's really really good. Then I watched Ghostbusters Afterlife. I gave it 2 stars. I enjoyed it. It was fine. I still gave it a like. I mostly watched it for Carrie Coon, but I was also kind of had the inkling because a lot of people watching the newest ones. I'm like, oh, I'll watch the 2021 version. I hadn't seen it yet. It's a movie, but it very much is just the wankiest. Remember the Ghostbusters? It's just such a pretentious piece of shit. So yeah, can't say I loved it. I've got a lot of thoughts on it. I don't really want to dive into it. But then I followed it up with Birth Today on the Criterion Channel, which I really thought was interesting. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. It's gonna dwell on me for a while, but Kylie is about to play, so I need to go. So let's cut to next month, next week. Bye. Okay, so the last film we talked about was Birth. Birth, remember that? Birth of a film. Nothing else to it. Don't think about it. Anyway, that was currently just shy of a week ago. It's actually a Thursday. I'm filming this part of the video because it's Easter weekend. So I have to film now so I can film the majority of it because I've only got 3 more days left of the month. And yet somehow I still watched too many films in the past week. Oh, you're about to see. So after Birth, I had football, so I went to, on the 23rd, I watched 4 features and 1 short, which I logged the short after the feature, not knowing I could, and then I found out I couldn't. I'm like, oh, that's cool, I'm going to do that. So anyway, on the 23rd, did I want to dive more into Ghostbusters Afterlife? No, I don't really want to. I watched Godzilla vs. Gigan. This was actually on the 22nd as well, but it was basically like, it was just after midnight that I logged it. Like, it was around 11:30 I started it, because I was just, got home from football, I'm like, I want to watch Godzilla. I wanted to watch Godzilla the whole time I was at football, so I just put on Godzilla vs. Gigan, I gave it 3 stars, I thought it was alright. It's the weaker of the bunch of the Showa era films, but you'll see in my I watched a bunch of Showa era Godzilla films, and this is what I learned video, whenever that comes out, sometime in the next couple of weeks. There's like 20 odd films to discuss. Anyway, then I watched, later in the day, I did a triple feature, technically a quadruple feature. I watched Deerskin, which I gave 5 stars. This was one that my friends had lent me a copy of, and I'd never heard of it before. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that it was 77 minutes, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty good, I'll put it on. And it turned out it was French, and I was like, I mean, it's not a bad thing, I'm not against French cinema, I like French cinema. It was kind of a weird starting. I was like, okay, I don't want to look up what the plot is, or like, not the plot, but like the synopsis, on Letterboxd. I'm like, I don't want any spoilers, so I'm just going to let it just happen and play out and see what happens. And it turns out I absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I was just like head over heels. This film was just, it slowly draws you in with an interesting character, and then gives you an interesting world, and then just kind of hits like dominoes. It just keeps going and going and going. It's so wonderful to watch. It was so funny. It had such extremities that I don't want to describe because I don't want to spoil the film at all. So I would highly suggest it. It is, again, short and sweet, 77 minutes. It's directed by a guy who literally had just won an Oscar like a couple years earlier for like The Artist, and he's basically like, hey, I can make any film I want now. I'm going to make Deerskin. And it is insanely good, so I highly recommend it. There was an Umbrella release, which is the version I watched, which was a good transfer. No special features at all, but, decent enough to have it. But again, it was a friend's copy. The next film I watched was a DVD copy of Kill List from 2011, another Ben Wheatley film. I'd done, what was the other film of his I watched? Free Fire earlier in the month, again, lent by Phil and Katie, so I liked it more than Free Fire. I didn't give it, I think I gave Free Fire a like because I at least enjoyed elements to it, but Kill List was like, it felt like a weaker version of a film I've seen several other times, but that had come out after the fact. It felt like had elements of like Fincher's The Killer, not really, but kind of. It definitely had elements of The Empty Man. It felt like this was like a proto version of The Empty Man, and The Empty Man is a phenomenal film. So it's like, this is like 2 hitmen, and it's mostly like just, you don't kind of realize it at first because the first like 40 minutes is just them at a dinner party, and it's just like, kind of sucks, but it's also like it's just showing the dynamic of the characters before getting to the nitty gritty of it all, and then you realize, oh, it's a commentary on like evil and how much you can be pushed in one direction or another, and what like psychological effects of things can happen to you. So yeah, it was interesting. I didn't exactly expect the ending, I'll be honest with that, but when it was happening, I was like, this is exactly like The Empty Man, which is scary. Because this came out before The Empty Man, like by almost a decade. So yeah, still gave it 3.5 stars. It's good for what it is, but I just didn't love it that much. I'm like, it's a good film, but not really hugely me. I wasn't as impacted by it. Then we went to this Astor and for the Cinemaniacs, and they did play Terror on the Midway first, which is a Superman cartoon, a Max Fletcher one, which is part of the restoration. I have the Blu-ray, and I was like, oh, that's cool to see one on the big screen. He fights a big monkey. It kind of makes sense because the next film was King Kong from 1976, which is the 4K from Studio Canal projected on the screen, which is wonderful. It even had like, this was restored in 4K, and I'm like, I've got the 4K UHD here at home, but lo and behold, I probably won't go to the next Cinemaniacs because it's Company of Wolves, and I have the Screen Factory, which I literally got at the end of December, but I also have Supernova on the same day, so I'm like, I'm probably not going to go for that reason, which sucks because I'd love to, but I'm also like, I could just stay home and watch for less cost, see Company of Wolves in 4K. But still, I gave King Kong 3 stars. It's fun-ish. I thought it was it's very long, it's kind of boring in places. It's not boring, but just, I've seen it all before because I've seen every other fucking version of King Kong that exists except for King Kong Lives. That it's just like, this doesn't impress me as much, but and I was there with Helene and she enjoyed it, but she was surprised I didn't go to the Empire State Building. I'm like, yeah, because the Twin Towers existed by this stage because this is set in the 70s. But Phil and Katie had never seen a solo King Kong film. And this was their first one, so they really liked it. And I'm like, okay, well, if they watch the original or even the Peter Jackson version, which is basically the same film, just with like different effects and a different runtime, obviously, then they could be like, they might not like the Peter Jackson version as much, very heavy on CGI, but they would probably love the original. So, yeah, I gotta lend them a copy of that, that's for sure. So yeah, that was alright. Then I came home and I put on Godzilla vs. Megalon. I again logged it for the 24th because I finished it after midnight, but it was the exact same situation of, I got home, I think Dad was at a concert, Noah was out, Mum was in bed, Sam was playing video games. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch another Godzilla film. So I watched Godzilla vs. Megalon. I gave it 2.5 stars. I did like it, but again, it's the exact same film as Gigan, except with like underwater people who still contact the alien people from the previous film, and hence Gigan comes by anyway. It uses a lot of the same footage. It's still okay. It's fine. It's definitely a pilot for like a TV show with this robot dude. It doesn't really matter. It's a very skippable film, realistically, but I still enjoyed it, On the 24th, this is on the 24th, again, this is technically 4 films, but in different experiences. I went to bed, I woke up, I put on Pee-wee's Big Adventure, because I got the Blu-ray from the Cinemaniacs, I'd never seen it, I wanted to watch it when he passed away, but I was not able to find a good copy of it, so they had it there, $25, I'm like, fuck yeah, that's beautiful, so I enjoyed it, I gave it 4 stars. I can see why a lot of people love this film so much. It's one of those, in the American cultural zeitgeist, this is like a big thing, and I can understand that, like, if you grew up watching this film, yeah, you would love it. Like, I would love this film as a kid. I like the elements that reminded me more of Beetlejuice, because again, it is Tim Burton, and Paul Rubin at first was like, this is weird, him, like, as Pee-wee, I'm like, I've seen him as other characters. I'd never seen him as Pee-wee, but a lot of it reminded me of Ariana Grande from bloody Victorious, and I'm like, okay, did she base her performance off of him, or what's the deal? Because obviously he predates her by like 20 odd years. And yeah, it was interesting. You had to get in the mindset of, once he interacted with like the bully character, and I realized, oh, they're like grown-up children. Okay, I get it now. It's a zany universe. Like I already got that basically, but it helped a lot more. It wasn't just, this guy's an annoying, like, slow, but like he was. It's not like he's a person who's like got like mental health issues or anything. He's not like autistic or anything. I mean, he might be, but like, the film's not trying to say that. It's not a Forrest Gump situation. It's he's just a child who is an adult, which I know is also like a mental condition, but like in the fictionalized sense. So I'm like, I get it, and everyone else is kind of the same. Some people are. All his adult friends are basically children. It makes a lot of sense, but they're all doing adult things. Except for sex, but like they're all doing like adult things, and it's funny. It has some fourth wall breaking stuff. Godzilla shows up, which is really bizarre. It's a fun film. Then I watched Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which I gave 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was visually wow. I loved Mechagodzilla. Love the classic design. The rest of the film was okay, but I enjoyed it. And then I watched Terror of Mechagodzilla, the final of the Showa era, and I gave that 3 stars. It has better direction because it's Ishiro Honda, and like visually it looks a lot better, but the story wasn't as captivating, nor were the characters. But you know, it was alright. On the 25th, I watched The Shiver of the Vampires, which is a 1971 film by John Rollin, is it? Jean Rollin? Yeah. I gave it 3 stars. It's the new Indicator 4K. I figured I'd maybe actually start watching these because I bought them a couple months ago. Back in like February, I think. But it had Dolby Vision issues. Every single time it would cut to a different shot. It would have like a slight like replay, like it would flicker back and forth for a second, and it just annoyed me. Visually, it still looked great even without the Dolby Vision. Like, Dolby Vision looked fantastic. I watched that for the first 10 minutes, then switched over to just regular HDR10. I'm like, this still looks fantastic, but that really annoys me. It must be the player. It can't be all the discs. Because it's not all the discs. It's just like these boutique brands somehow keep not having great encoding. I don't know. If it happens with... I've got 4 of their releases on 4K. All these John Roland fucking vampire films. If the next one I watch, which I think is the Lips of Blood, if that plays up as well, I'll update my player. I don't like updating it, but I'll try and see if that'll fix anything. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It's fine. It's basically just vampire erotica, a lot of naked girls, that kind of bullshit. A very vague, slow-driven plot. It could have been a 20-minute long short film, but instead they're like, nah, let's drag this out to like 90 minutes because we can. Anyway, I'm very interested to see the rest of them because this one apparently is his like most straightforward narrative. I'm like, I can understand more surrealist elements. I would probably prefer that. Like, if you're gonna go with slow-paced, vague kind of stuff, do more surrealism, you know? This film had some surrealist elements, which I liked, but it didn't have enough. And there was a vampire film I watched like a week earlier, the Spanish one, which was a lot better. At basically achieving the exact same type of film. Then I watched Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I spent $12.75 at the cinema, which is pretty good for an Australian ticket. That's really cheap. I enjoyed it. No, I didn't. Why am I lying? I did not enjoy it that much. I gave it 2.5 stars, so I did prefer it, star-wise, over Afterlife, but I preferred Afterlife because it had better characterization and was a lot more film-like until it became just the film joking off on your face and being like, Ghostbusters, 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 Ghostbusters. This film still kind of does that, but it's like got 20 different subplots. It's one of those over-the-top, a lot of shit happening, end of the world thing is going to be the final conclusion point. It feels like a series of TV compressed into 2 hours of a movie, like either a Stranger Things ripoff or that kind of shit, where all the characters have to do their own things, they're all disconnected, and they eventually connect, and bada bing, bada boom, it's season 2 of Stranger Things, and now Max is shooting fire at people. It's just not great. Anyway. And then, as of last night, I watched Kong Skull Island with my brother, which we watched the 4K of it. I gave it 3.5 stars. I gave it 4 stars last time, but that was back in 2019. I didn't enjoy it as much this time. I still like it, but I think just when I watched it initially, I was like, yeah, nihilism. But this time I'm just like, it's just a big monkey. It's still nice, you know. I can understand the thematic elements, and it's still visually really good, but it's also like, I don't really think I need to see this more times. Like, I've seen it 3 times now, I believe. I think I watched it the year after it came out. It was on Foxtel, and I didn't like it. And then I rewatched it in, like, 2019. I'm like, man, this film's actually really good. And then I watched it this year, and I'm like, 5 years later, and I'm like, it's alright. It's good, it's fun. But Godzilla X Kong tonight, hence the Godzilla shirt. See, it's got Godzilla on the back. It's from Japan. Anyway, it was actually my brother's. He was getting rid of a bunch of shirts, and I just was like, I'll take that. Fuck yeah. So yeah. Let's jump to Godzilla X Kong. Okay, so now we're going into... I haven't showered. I'm getting to the stage where I got so much hair on my head again that it's like, oh, you got to shower every day so that it stops being sticking up in every goddamn direction. It's a day off, so, I'm wearing my Shrek beanie. I got a Ghostbusters shirt? What the frag? I got this for Christmas? I have never worn it until, like, a couple days ago. Before I decided to watch Frozen Empire, but, like... it's actually really soft, so it's like perfect to sleep in. So yes, this is my pajamas. I watched Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. This was really goddamn fun. I gave it 4 stars because, you know me, I just like big monsters having fun. And it very much feels more like a Kong film than a Godzilla film. It was apparently initially written more as a standalone Kong film, and they're like, you know what? Why don't we just kind of add Godzilla to this? And to be fair, I kind of prefer that they did, because even though we could have had more development with the gorilla civilization, the bad guy, stuff like that, I don't really care, because in the end, a lot of Godzilla films are just... monster shows up, usually is controlled by someone else, and they have to fight, and then the humans have to defeat the aliens or whoever's controlling the monsters. Like it's very basic stuff, but this felt very Showa era, which makes me so happy I watched all the Showa era. It reminds me a lot of kind of like late Showa with Godzilla teaming up with someone, because of course he teams up with Kong. Not as willingly, which I find really fun. I won't spoil anything if you haven't watched it, but the monsters that do show up, I really enjoyed. The big one, I don't even know which one to say, the big one. You know what? Mothra's back. I'm happy about that. That was wonderful. Godzilla was awesome. Kong was cool. Like, it's still... you relate to the guy. Boy has a toothache. He gets Dan Stevens in to help him out. Like, come on. That's, like, perfect. He uses a monkey to fight other monkeys. It's hilarious. There's just so much fun that happens on screen. And we had it where, like, because the Village Cinemas we go to, this was actually, initially it was me and Guy were going, but then I also invited my dad and my brother, and my brother's girlfriend who had never seen a Godzilla film, and my brother and his girlfriend sat further back, because obviously, date night kind of deal, they don't want to be with us, and they said the sound sounded fine. They didn't notice too many issues with it. There are still tags on this, by the way. But me and Guy and Dad were sitting on third row, which is perfect. Got the whole screen in front of us, wonderful stuff. And the right-hand side was just, all of the speakers were just broken. It was just bass, and you could tell that while watching the previews for other films, but especially when the movie was on, all the score was just coming out of the left-hand side, and the back surround sound speakers, which we couldn't hear very well, because again, if you're sitting that close, you mainly are only hearing what's up front, which I preference because it means I don't have to see people on their phones, I don't have to hear people talking, and I don't get disturbed by people in the cinema. I prefer that. There was even, the row behind us was meant to be booked out for like 8 people, and when they got in, they realized, oh, it's too close, we're going to sit a row back. So they actually sat 2 rows back from us, so we didn't get disturbed, and I loved it. And despite the fact that all the music, the score was coming from one speaker side, I didn't mind, because I could appreciate the effects and the dialogue and everything. I'm like, man, if I go see this in like IMAX or something, I'm going to be so entranced by that score. Every single time Godzilla shows up, they're like, here's the Godzilla score. And I'm like watching a Godzilla zone, like, this is cool, and then I just hear the Godzilla score nearing the end of each sequence. I'm like, oh, the Godzilla score's here, that's cool. So either way, it was fun. They could have used better song choices for their pop culture songs. My mate Guy, his review was just a link to the music video for The Boys Are Back in town, and that would have been perfect for this movie, but they didn't use it, which is stupid. But yeah, so just giant monsters, a lot of great visuals. I really enjoyed it. What can I say? I really am liking where this MonsterVerse is going. I love Godzilla vs. Kong. Kong's Island was still fun. Godzilla, their 2014 one, I love. I still think I preference that over all the rest of them, but And this one gets rid of Millie Bobby Brown. Like that's like the smartest decision this franchise has made. And you can see the monsters nice and clearly, in contrast to King of the Monsters. So there's so many pros and cons. And then once we left, I ran into Phil and Katie. They were there on the same goddamn day. They were watching it in gold class because they'd gotten tickets for Christmas. So they just happened to be watching the exact same movie because obviously Village prompts you, oh, there's a better screening at 6:45. We went for the 6:30 one, and I'm like, it's in gold class. It'll be prettier, more expensive. I'm like, I don't want that though. I'm seeing this with like people. No. So yeah, that was great. We caught up with them. I was able to introduce them to like majority of my family because they have never met my parents or any of my brothers, and they had met Guy but not really, so they were reintroduced to Guy. They met my dad, they met Noah and Noah's girlfriend. Like, it was just bizarre, but it was wonderful. So it made for a hell of a good experience. And then we watched, to make things even more fun, I got home, I did some editing, I'm like, you know what, it's, Thursday, it's almost Good Friday. I think it's still considered Holy Thursday in the Catholic circle. I don't know. I'm not religious. But I wanted to watch this next film over this Holy Weekend because I thought it'd be funny, but I was also like, I want to watch it now so I don't have to stress about it to try and fit it in on Saturday or Sunday. I watched The Devils. Yes, The Devils. I went to watch it about a week ago, and the Criterion version was like a 540p version, so I'm like, oh, that kind of sucks. So I didn't put it on the big screen. I'm like, I won't do that to myself. I'll just, watch it on my laptop, put in my new headphones, and it was wonderful. I gave it 5 stars. I'm just like, this is like, initially it took me a bit to get into. I'm like, okay, what is this getting at? But as with most good movies, it takes its time and it pays off delightfully. So it's wonderfully shot. It's got some amazing performances. It's a really hell of a story. It's really funny to me, at least, someone who is pretty critical on like religious antics and stuff like that. So it's good. It's a great film. It's a fantastic film. It is really messed up in like so many beautiful ways, like very like, what's the word, blasphemous, and I really enjoy seeing stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know, it's a hell of a picture, and I definitely recommend it. Ken Russell's filmography is really bizarre. I've only seen Lair of the White Worm, and that was already really fun, but not one that I absolutely adored. And I've still got like Altered States and a couple others of his to watch. So yeah, hopefully I'll get around to watching those tomorrow. And or the day after, while they're still on the Criterion Channel. But yeah, that's wonderful, watching The Devils on the Criterion Channel. Fucking good stuff. Anyway, what else did I watch to conclude this month? Okay, I'll see if I can keep this quick, so I'm not making this video too long. I watched Three Musketeers D'Artagnan, which was part of the French Film Festival. Watched it with my partner and her mum and her aunt, which we got as free tickets, and it was okay. I gave it 2.5 stars. It was one of those films where I'm like, I've seen this narrative before because I've seen a few other Three Musketeers films, and it's identical. And also, it was awfully shot. It looked like shit. It had a terrible color grading. It was like a lot of one-shot takes for sword fighting, which doesn't work. Yeah, the action wasn't great. The characters weren't very interesting. It didn't really seem like they had much, like, connectiveness to them for 3 people who were meant to be like friends for a long time, and then a new guy who just seems horny most of the time. So I wasn't really huge on it. A lot of people love it for some reason, but then I look at Letterboxd and there's mostly people just being horny towards the actors. So I'm like, okay, French people. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't suggest watching the 2011 version instead, but if you haven't watched the Three Musketeers film before, this isn't a bad way to go narratively, but in terms of like action choreography, it was awful. I absolutely hated it. I was also really bored by just the cinematography. It has the realistic lighting thing where it just looks constantly dark, and I hate it so much. It is just the worst thing that come out of cinematography of the past like 10 years, where it's like everything needs to look realistic. No, do stylized stuff, make it look nice, Please, for the love of God, you know, the 2011 film had a steampunk edge. You can have a look, it looks like a movie edge, but you just don't. And the one take cuts for the action scenes were awful. Anyway, on the 30th, I did a double feature. I watched Saint Maud. I finally got around to watching it, mostly because I figured Easter weekend, why not watch some, biblical horror? And I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I much preferred it to Love Lies Bleeding. I know a lot of people love Love Lies Bleeding, and that's fair. I gave it 3.5 stars. I still liked it. But Saint Maud was more my style. It was the horror approach I liked, cinematography-wise, sound design, the score, tremendous. I love them. The lead performance as well, I should mention, because I gotta mention her name. What do we got? Morford Clark. That's a hell of a name. Apparently she's in Crawl, which I have seen, and I don't remember her being in it, but she plays Beth. And I haven't seen her in anything else. She's in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I don't remember that. So let's move on. But yeah, I really liked it. I hated it taking me this long to watch it, but I also like how it's like, is it interpretive? Is it like everything's actually that you're seeing is real, or is it just like an allegory for mental health issues? It's all very realistically, because it's like based on like religious texts and stuff, and like how that's kind of interpretive as well. I like when they kind of do that. It's very wanky, but I also really dig it. And also it's scary, and it has some great visuals. And I did a whole sequence I did not expect to happen near the end, and I was just like, basically like the last 10 minutes, I was just like, what the fuck? I didn't expect any of what happened, and I really liked it. It's like 80 minutes. It says 85, but it's like 5 minutes of credits. It's 80 minutes long. It's really good. I followed that up with Black Narcissus. Yeah, I tried watching the first 20 minutes a second time with the audio commentary on, and I almost fell asleep because it was like really late at night. But I was really entranced by the film. I gave it 4 stars. I would love to watch it again. It is visually exceptional. It is a wonderful thing to look at. I really, really want to dive into more of the Blu-ray that I watched, because it has a bunch of special features that go into the making of and stuff. But it's really interesting to look at it as a time period film of like, color films hadn't done this before, and it was such a different thing, but also it's a very taboo subject matter of like nuns that are like kind of a bit horny and then go crazy, and I love that. There's so much beauty in it. Sure, there's black, well, technically brown face, which isn't exactly good. Never good, obviously, but the rest of it outside of that is really, really good. Again, I give it 4 stars. I feel like it's a 4.5 to 5 star film, like in contrast to like, I'm thinking like in contrast to Saint Maud, kind of crazy how I gave them both the same star rating, but it's the same thing of like, this is why star ratings are irrelevant. I really liked it a lot. That's good enough. There's a guy I follow who like gives star ratings, but then actually gives like numbered ratings, so he kind of is able to differentiate as to what notch he likes. But I'm also like, I don't want to be that level of anal about it, so I try not to be. And then today, to finish off my Criterion channel for the month, because I've watched a lot this month. I think this month I've watched the most I've watched of any months for the Criterion channel. I watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a short film, so 9. I believe that is the most I've ever watched in a single month. Anyway, I've got a tag on my letterbox so I can see what I've actually watched, which is really convenient. But I did The Swimmer from 1968, the Burt Lancaster film, because it was leaving the channel, and I mean, look, all the stuff I basically watched this month was leaving the channel to some degree, including like Xanadu and Freddy Got Fingered and whatnot, and this was really good. Yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars. I loved like every second of it. I was just like, is this like a... I was like trying to read into like, is this like metaphorical for like the 7 layers of hell? Is it all this kind of stuff? And you kind of realize what's going on as it goes on, because it's like, it's one of those zany ideas of like, oh, he's a guy in his swim trunks and he just runs from house to house, just swimming in their pools. And like, the basic concept is really funny, but then when you watch it, like, this is like a nightmare. it just keeps getting worse and worse. And you feel like you relate to the main character, like, oh yeah, I could be in that spot, you know, the ex-girlfriends and like the childhood crushes, and then like the people who admire you and have crushes on you, and you're like, oh, maybe I can do something with this. And you realize that like all of this is just bad, and you were just a bad person. It was really good. I did write in my review that don't make friends with people who have pools. They're a strange folk, which I probably shouldn't say because it's based on yes, I do feel that way, but also no, because one of my best friends has a pool. I mean, I guess he's kind of strange. But the other person who I knew who had a pool, I don't talk to anymore. So, they're not rich people, but you know. I mean, I guess, are they? They have pools. They're not themselves. Their parents are. They live at their parents' houses. Anyway, the last film I watched, I definitely recommend this film. I recommend all these films, except for The Three Musketeers. The final film I watched was Altered States from 1980, the Ken Russell film. This is my third Ken Russell film behind The Devils, obviously, and Lair of the White Worm, and I think I prefer this to Lair of the White Worm. I definitely don't prefer it in contrast to The Devils. The Devils is a clear masterpiece. Like, you can't beat The Devils. And I realised what I said, don't worry. I gave it 4 stars. I was like, it's a probably 3.5-star film. I'm enjoying it. The characters are interesting. There's some interesting experiences. It's very 2001-esque, but it really nailed it in this last scene. It goes for this body horror-esque stuff, which was fantastic. Like, the last 20 minutes is fucking mental. There's so many elements to this film that build on it, but also you see it's all thematically there. Like, it's a film that's literally just about a guy who just does not understand love. So he just was like, what if I get so fucking high, I understand literally the whole entire universe until it almost kills me, and then I understand love. And yeah, it's got a lot of crazy visuals. I'd say 1980, but again, obviously made in the late 80s, late 70s. And I don't even criticize its effects, like, you know, you got the blue screen stuff and whatever, but it doesn't seem cheap in contrast to like some, you know, showier Godzilla stuff. But yeah, it just has, like, its last scene in particular, it uses the effects in a really creative way, which I really liked, like mixing these optical effects with these practical effects, and it just looks fantastic. But it also just has some natural, like, it's normal cinematography that's just people in shadows and in light, has some wonderful silhouette shots. It's a very interesting film. But yeah, so I want to rewatch Black Narcissus. I want to finish watching my second watch of it with the audio commentary, because it was interesting. I was just really tired. I started nodding off, and then I woke up and was like, oh, I should stop watching this and go to bed. Because that's how life is. Anyway, sorry I've been a bit quieter for this last clip. I've got people sleeping next door. And sorry for such a long video. I've watched a lot of films this month. Yeah, don't worry, I have to sit through all this and edit it, so don't worry, I understand. And it's longer for me to edit it. So I'm gonna go to bed now because I have to film the interview tomorrow. And I will see you kids in a couple of days' time. Back to the regularly scheduled programming. I've got some more videos coming out, so yeah, some mail videos, some videos talking about films and stuff like that. I don't know, I just filmed some stuff over the past like 2 weeks, and I'm like, hey, sure, I'll make it, videos out of it. I don't know. Bye, have a nice time. Let me know what you've watched. Anything good? Let me know down below.